Hi, how are
I'm
you?
good. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. Thank you so much for being here and joining us today. I'm really excited to talk with you today because I feel like um, you just write in a way that I think a lot of people need
Mm.
currently. So, we'll talk a little bit more about that as we get through today. But to start us off, I'd like to just have a moment to hear a little bit about how you would describe yourself to people that are new to you.
Oh, I am the daughter of Carrie Elizabeth Watson. I am a writer and and a storyteller, really. So stories come to me in all kinds of ways: poetry, prose, and I want to always connect with people through my storytelling.
Mm.
Um, I think it's also important to know that I am deeply loved by so many women in my life. And I feel like any space I enter, they are with me. So
Mm.
my sisters, aunties, good girlfriends, they show up in my books and they show
Wow.
up with me. Literally, their wisdom and their love for me carries me forward.
Yeah, yeah. I love that you started off by saying whose daughter you are. I don't think I was expecting that. Yeah. Is that how you always introduce yourself?
Not always, but it has been very important lately to
Mm.
mention my mother, who passed away 3 years ago now. But yeah, I think so much of who I am is because of her. So
Mm.
I bring her up often
Yeah.
and talk about how she raised me, what I learned from her. And so she's always with me
Yeah.
in a way.
I think that's so beautiful. And I'm sorry for your loss.
Thank you.
And in many ways, you're kind of keeping her with you, like you say, by mentioning her as
Hmm.
much as you can. Yeah.
Yeah.
How has grief kind of informed your writing journey?
So I think, especially with All the Blues in the Sky, I had gone through a lot of back to back losses.
Mm.
Some were just utterly shocking. And then others I was a little more prepared for, got to say goodbye, had some closure on the front end of people like that
Yeah.
anticipating it to happen. And so I think it showed up in my writing in that way, just from my literal experience, not the particulars of Sage's story. I
Mm.
have never loved math or science. She loves math and science and
I hear
wants to
you
be
on
a
that.
pilot. And, she's into all of that. That's
Mm.
so not me.
Mm-hmm.
So the actuals are not me, but definitely the themes and
Yeah.
the feeling and emotion. I know what it feels like to be sad and angry and still be dreaming. She's carrying
Mm.
a range of emotions.
Yeah.
And having some really good days, some tender
Yeah.
kisses, and meeting new friends, and also really grieving. And so I think I've been pulling from my own
Mm.
life of having in 1 month the best and worst news happening all at the
Yeah.
same time.
Yeah.
And so that definitely showed up in the book for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel like that's the human experience, right? Of being
Yes.
having to be able to navigate through such big, different emotions at once, right?
Hmm.
How does that show up in your writing?
So it shows up in a very literal way. I really make characters who are grappling with uh, challenges and celebrations. I always tell young people I want them to celebrate where they come from and critique where you come from. So
Mm.
what do we love about our neighborhoods? What do we love about our families? What do we love about ourselves? And then what do we want to change about our
Yeah.
families, our schools, our neighborhoods,
Yeah.
and ourselves?
Mm-hmm.
And that to me is the beauty of writing fiction and realistic fiction especially,
Mm-hmm.
is because I can write things how they are and how I want them to be.
Yeah.
And part of that is acknowledging the everyday beauty
Mm-hmm.
and the everyday joys, the really small things to celebrate,
Mm.
and also giving voice to things that, make you angry and
Yeah.
sad and frustrate you, and that there's space for all of it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm trying to have all of that show up in my writing.
Yeah, yeah. And I think that, I mean, as someone that's read your writing, that's always something that is very clear. I find that everything that you've mentioned is extremely relatable to me and, of course, many others. And what you're also talking about is being able to kind of rely on imagination to be able to see these little things that you've mentioned to spark that creativity. So, how do you keep your imagination alive?
How do I keep my imagination alive? That is a great question. I think I continue to take in art.
Mm.
So, I'm inspired by other poets and writers who are also grappling with the world of joys and sorrows and looking at how they do it in their work, and trying to do that in mine. I think I keep my imagination open by keeping young people in my life. I feel like they are so full of dreams and so many questions. And so the more I talk to young people, the more I'm inspired to make and create something for them, to help them process what's happening, and just to also entertain.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes we talk about art as such a serious thing, and it is. It's important and it's serious and it gets us talking about important issues, but it's also fun.
Yeah.
And I like to play with language and I like to experiment. So sometimes when I'm thinking of my imagination, it really is me just in my journal writing for Renee and not for an audience. And just, you know, verbing a noun and playing around with metaphors and personification and just writing for nothing except to do the work of writing, exercising the muscle. So, I think my imagination is sparked by play and letting myself just run free in my journal. And I don't know that, I think the more you write, especially professionally, you can get out of the habit of playing with language and just creating for art's sake and not for the deadline or the next project. So sometimes I just like to think of things that I'll never share. It's just for me.
Yeah. And I think that it's so beautiful that you still make time to just write and play for you. And it sounds like being able to be surrounded by kids has really helped you to continue to do that. And a lot of your work is for kids. And I'm wondering, what was the inspiration behind that for you? Was that always what you wanted to do when you decided that you were going to be a writer and that's how it was going to go?
You know, when I first started writing and taking courses for writing, I should say, in college, I really didn't know that there was a whole genre for young adult. I obviously knew that there were picture books, but I don't know that I understood fully that they're, middle grade, YA. I just was like, I'm a storyteller. I want to write stories. And it just so happened my protagonists continued to be teenagers or young people. Most likely, I think, because I worked with them. Before I was writing full time, I was teaching poetry in public schools as a writer in residence. So not as a full-time classroom teacher, but I would go into the schools several times a week, 90-minute writing workshops, really getting to know young people for the full school year. They would do poetry slams and we would talk about what they cared about. So their stories were always with me, their questions, their the foolery that happens in middle school, the crushes and gossip and all the intense emotions when you are in the 7th grade. Everything is so intense.
Everything is so never ending also.
Yes,
It'll never
it's the
end.
end of the world or the very best thing that's ever happened.
Right.
And so when I would go to write, those were the things that were fresh on my mind. And I feel like I was in conversation with some of my students through my work, having witnessed what they were going through and what they were dealing with. And then my childhood also. I feel like in a lot of ways I'm celebrating my childhood, but also healing some of my childhood through my own writing. So I think it's a mixture of writing for children has been for me to put some things on record that I wish I had when I was a young person.
Yeah.
Like dark-skinned Black girls who are the protagonists and not sad and downtrodden all the time. And beautiful, big women gracing covers of books. And then I'm thinking of the young people who I've worked with. So my childhood and young people are kind of the inspiration for what I do.
Yeah. And so as someone that reads middle grade and young adult, I read it for that particular reason of being able to be like, wow, these are things that I really, really wish I had when I was 13, 14, 12, 11. And it's just amazing to know that kids growing up now do have such a big catalog of books that they can rely on for difficult conversations and different life changes that they're going to inevitably go through. So you've also written adult, right? And I'm wondering, what's the difference for you between writing for young adult and middle grade and then also writing for adult? Was there a big change for you or did it just kind of come naturally?
It came very natural. I was thinking about the adults, the mamas, aunties, teachers who are raising the young people that I write for. And I'm doing all these books for young people that cover issues like body image and raising your voice, finding your strength, all of that. And I've been thinking a lot about, well, what are the parents teaching them? What are the teachers teaching them? What are we passing down to the younger generation about beauty and love and all those kind of buzzwords, self-care, what does that look like in a practical way from the handing down of good practice of how to love yourself and others. So it was a natural transition, because also so many of my readers who started out with me are grown now, which is wild. That I've been writing long enough that I have even in my family, my nieces were in middle school when I started writing, and now they're in their mid-20s.
Wow.
So yeah, I've been doing this for a while now. So some of it was also just wanting to stay in conversation with the people I've been writing for, and then also welcoming other folks who may not have known anything about my children's books. And we can get together and have some grown folks conversations around dating and relationships, love, and all its forms and messiness. Yeah,
in many ways, you're just kind of continuing to meet them where they are, and
I hope so.
Wanting to be on their journey with them.
Yeah.
You talked a lot about body image, which is something that, of course, you do cover in your books, and something that I deeply resonate with in many different ways. How do you feel like your work is countering the images and the messages that we're getting right now about bodies?
Oh, I am so excited to be creating in this time. I remember when I first got published, the conversations around the cover of her body, her size, the tone of her skin, her hair being natural or not. There was just so much conversation about that. And now it's not an issue. If anything, it's just more, well, what do you want? But it's not like, can she be dark skinned?
Right.
I don't have to ask
and be
permission
hesitant
for that anymore. So it feels good to be in a place in publishing where we are acknowledging that there's diversity of all forms, including body diversity, and that bodies show up in many different sizes. Skin tones show up in many different shades, hair texture, all the things we know. But I feel like publishing, especially in children's lit, is catching up to actually having that representation on the cover. And it makes me really proud that I've been one of the authors who has made sure that the character looks like how they describe themselves. And so if she says she's big
on that,
and not just thick, but big, that's what we want to see on the cover. And that she can be stylish and, just all the women I grew up with and the girls I grew up with. I just wanted to make sure I'm putting work out into the world where people see their reflection and feel proud. Sometimes you see your reflection in something, or someone's trying to make something for you, but it's offensive or hurtful because you're like, oh, that's how you see me?
Right.
Downtrodden and sad because I'm dark and big? Like, come on now. So, I hope that my books have made a difference, not only the content of what they're about, but the covers as well.
Yeah. I mean, I think, that is a clear, foundation of the books that I've read by you for sure. And what you mentioned about, like, is this how you see me? Right. We're so much more than our bodies. And I think oftentimes that's kind of like the after conversation. And there's an expectation that, you're not going to be satisfied or happy if you're in a particular body. Yeah,
the assumptions. Or even, I know I wrote, and I've talked about this before, with some places more than others. The character Amara, I never talk about her body. She does not wear like what would be traditional girl clothes, dresses, skirts. Her mother makes clothes. So her mother's always trying to put her in something girly. And she's like, Mom, she's a Nike kid. She's a sneakerhead because her dad works at Nike. And so I never described what she looked like as far as the shape or the width of her body. And when we were working on the cover, the first illustration for the cover, she was a thin girl. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. In my mind, Amara's big.
Right.
And everyone was like, oh, really? And I'm like, yeah, skinny is not the default. We always go to, if you don't name it, then that means,
that's automatically what you intended.
And I get that. It makes sense. That is the culture we live in, is how we are all kind of indoctrinated to think that thin is the norm and beautiful and accepted and so
successful and happy.
Yeah, absolutely. So, gentle conversations. It's not like I needed to, rage war over it, but I just
right.
said, oh, I would love if we could make her big. That's the point. I don't want the story to be about that, but I want the cover to show her
Yeah.
being big and fashionable. And so I
Right.
especially love the paperback cover because she's fly and it's her big self taking up space on the cover.
Yeah.
And I think that that's important.
Yeah, absolutely. And something I'm curious about for you is because I think in the process of really just kind of decentering, what a perfect body should look like and how we should show up in the world, it takes a lot of unlearning. What are some things that you've had to unlearn in regards to some of, again, the messaging that we receive about bodies?
Oh my goodness, apologizing for taking up space, literally.
Yeah.
We talk sometimes about taking up space in this like, in a metaphor type of way, or a spiritual way, that space that you can't see. But my body takes up space. Like I actually do take up space. And I think I've learned to personally not apologize for it, but also not have my characters do too much explaining. In the same way that, I think a lot of, because of Toni Morrison and her brilliance and teaching us that we don't need to explain anything to white folks. They can read between the lines and understand. We're not writing for the white gaze. In the same way, writing big characters, I'm also not going to over-explain something that a big character is doing, how she's walking, why she's dressing a certain way, or I got out of the habit of over-explaining things that I was worried, like, well, I don't know if the reader will get it. I know they'll get it, or they won't, and that's okay too. Okay. Or they'll look into it if it's something that makes them curious, and just trusting the reader to come with me, and trusting that the person who is going to relate to that character will feel seen, and without all this over-explanation. So I definitely think that has been something I've worked on. Yeah, and also just allowing a character to be big, and that's not what the story is about.
Yeah, yeah.
Or they're not trying to change their bodies. Sometimes
that's another big one.
That was just a movement almost in children's lit, where the character is, finally we have big characters, but none of them are happy. Right. They're all on a diet or being teased or bullied, and the story is about them overcoming that and finding strength in all that. And I was like, well, what if she shows up and she's all right?
Right.
With her looks. Right. So with Love is a Revolution, Nala, she is not thinking. I mean, she has no low self-esteem when it comes to what she looks like and how her body takes up space. Now, she has some other issues she needs to work on. Nala got some issues for sure, but it is not self-esteem and self-worth. And so I'm also just constantly trying to make sure that my characters show up nuanced and pushing against any kind of stereotype. What I loved about Skin and Bones was that the three main women are all big, so that no one is having to be the caricature of fatness or the caricature of blackness. They're all plus size Black women, so we can get that out of the way, that none of them are representing that group. Right. They can all be their nuanced, complicated, messy selves.
Yeah. Why do you think it always has to be kind of like either or binary when it comes to this particular conversation?
Oh, I mean, I just think that's how our culture is about most things. I don't know that we allow ourselves to live in the gray and accept that things are not always simple. Yeah. And that we're complicated people and there are many sides to us. I think we don't talk enough to each other. We talk a lot to each other. We don't listen.
Maybe at each other.
We don't listen well. And so in the storytelling, I think a lot of times people are listening to then tell their story and not to listen to just take in someone's story. And so then we just have these very narrow ways of thinking of people because we really haven't listened to them and let them define who they are. We come with all these stereotypes, even in a meaningful way. I mean, sometimes when we talk about this, we think of the worst case scenarios of what a stereotype can lead to. Yeah. But I think there's even caring, good intentioned, well-meaning people who still kind of have a notion about what it's like to be and fill in the blank, anything, Black, woman, big, there's all kind of assumptions we bring into our relationships with people. And I think it's important to acknowledge that and say, I need to just ask you a question and
Right.
not expect you to speak as a spokesperson for a group you might represent or fall into, but
Yeah.
just I want to just get to know you.
As a person.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's, I guess, it would take being able to see someone past these identities that they hold. And as we're talking, I'm wondering to myself, it's like we started with, you sharing all the things that make you you. And I'm wondering, what has your journey towards identity been like for you?
My journey towards identity?
And being grounded in it, being like, okay, this is me, this is what I like, this is what I don't like, this is who
I
I
don't know. I
am.
think I'm ever evolving. I think going back to my mother and the way that I was raised and the women around me, I just saw very strong women who loved themselves and loved each other well. Not perfect at all. And I think that is also what's made me the way that I am. Like they had enough grace to be human and to accept each other's flaws and still love each other. So I
Yeah.
just grew up in a healthy environment, right? And so I think that that's helped me try to emulate those relationships that I saw my mother have with her sister, my Aunt Mary, and the women at my church, and how they loved each other and pushed each other to be their best selves, and didn't tolerate foolishness. Like all of that. I was learning how to become. And then reading, I always say, if you don't have it in your real life, find it in the world because it exists. And so then I was finding mentors as a kid, reading Lucille Clifton and Maya Angelou and Nikki Giovanni, these women who were writing poems about their bodies, about their childhood, their communities, with such love and such depth that I was like, oh, how can I be any other way? I was raised by these women in my personal life and then literary life that taught me how to survive this world and how to be patient with myself. And also push myself too. None of the people that I'm thinking of that are in my mind right now settled. And I think that also pushed me into being who I am.
Yeah, I think something that you just said that's sticking with me is that you said none of them settled, right? And that it sounds like the thread that holds everything together is always love for you and being surrounded by it. What would you say to someone that might be struggling to find that type of love that you're describing, especially now?
Yeah, so that when I mentioned the folks I didn't know, I mean, there were I got to know Nikki personally, but I never met Lucille Clifton. I never met Maya Angelou. But you can't tell me they didn't raise me and have an influence on my writing, but also my womanhood, my womanness. Toni Morrison, these people who you may not know personally. I think of just reading biographies, reading their poetry, watching interviews and letting those be your mentors if you feel like in your actual life you have no one. There are people who prayed us into existence who did not know us by name, but they had us on their mind. And I know for sure I am the answer to somebody's prayer, literally my mother's, but also people who never knew me. And so I'm always encouraging all of us to reach back if we don't feel like we have it near us. Reach for the mentors and the advice because it's there, it exists. We have been surviving and surviving and surviving, and they have left us a map to teach us how to get by. And so, if you don't feel like you have it in your real life, I would say search for it from the folks who have gone on and showed us how to do it.
I feel like I'm, again, stunned by what you said because I feel like I was not expecting what you said, but it's so perfect, right? Especially, I think, now a lot of people are, of course, navigating through so much, right? And looking for answers, looking for a way out in many different ways and not really knowing where to go. So to hear you be like, look back, the answers are there. It's also making me want to ask, like, what are the books that raised you? If you can think of maybe a couple.
So House on Mango Street by Sandra Cisneros is a staple in my life. And collective poetry of the poets I mentioned, Nikki Giovanni, Lucille Clifton, and Gwendolyn Brooks. Oh my goodness, yes. So those those poets especially, and there were others, but those were the go-to texts for me. That I feel like, yeah, they spoke to me. I remember it because when I was younger, I read novels, but I didn't connect with them in the same way that I did when I read poetry.
Okay.
And I didn't know how to articulate that as a kid, but I think it was because the poets were speaking directly to me and about me and my neighborhood. I understood exactly what they were saying and how they were talking. And the novels were great, and they were stories that I could kind of relate to, but I didn't really see myself in. I was reading, the Ramona series and a lot of books by Judy Blume, and I loved those books, and they are cherished.
Yeah.
But I didn't necessarily see my
Not
neighborhood and
100%.
my family.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
And so you pick up a poem by Lucille Clifton, and she's telling you to love your hips and your hair, and to look in the mirror and tell yourself you're a wonder. Oh yeah, she sounded like my auntie.
Yeah.
And so yeah, those are the poets that raised me.
Yeah. And again, it's like you said, like those other novels that you read, like, yes, they're like legendary and they have their space, right? But nothing beats being able to see yourself in the work, in the writing. Yeah.
And that's why with All the Blues in the Sky, I was thinking of making sure young Black girls especially can see themselves in a character who's sad.
Yeah.
I write a lot of books where girls are raising their voices and rising up, finding their voice and speaking their truth. And I know those young ladies. I taught them, and they are amazing and brilliant. But I also wanted it to be okay for a Black girl to be quiet and to reflect and to admit that she's hurting and that we don't always have to be the kind of Black girl magic that we snap about. We can be a different kind of magic that is a quiet strength.
Yeah.
And that there is strength in healing. And it is very, very strong for a person to say, I need help.
Yeah.
And so, speaking of who do you lean on and leaning on your ancestors, Sage is leaning on her Aunt Annie. She's leaning on her new friends that she's hesitant to make, but is taking the risk to make them.
Was natural,
Yeah, of
right?
course. Yeah. And so, I just think I'm trying to always show young people especially the options that they have when you're saying, what do you do when you feel like you don't have anyone? I think just look up, look around you. You have somebody. It might not be the obvious person, or it might not be the person you want. I definitely, I remember being in middle school and wishing to be best friends with, this person who did not care about me and was actually mean. But I wanted them to like me so, so much.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, the true friend who was sticking by me the whole time was right there. So I think too, sometimes it's opening your eyes and realizing you have some support and you just need to open your mouth and ask for the thing you need from them.
Yeah. I think it can be tough though also.
Yeah.
Like I think like you said, it takes strength to be able to ask for help, especially in the ways that you need it, right? And I think the second part of that is also being open to receiving it.
Yes. And I mean, sometimes we don't know what we need. And as a person that may be giving, you don't know what to give, you just care.
Yeah.
And so I think too, it's okay, especially when we're talking about grief or just sitting in some of the anger and sadness and rage that is happening right now. It is also okay not to know what to say.
Yeah.
A lot of times when I'm going through something, it's not that I even need the advice. I just need to be seen.
Yeah.
I just need to know you care. Even if you don't understand
why
I'm upset or why it's bothering me so much, or you can't relate to what I'm going through. If you just sit with me and say, I'm here.
Yeah.
If you want to go on a walk, if you want to just listen to music, if you want to talk or not talk about it, whatever. Those are the moments where I feel like, I'm so taken care of by my people.
Yeah.
So I want us all to give each other permission. Like I can ask, but I can also maybe not even know what I need and just say, I just need you. I just need you to be with me.
Yeah.
And also give myself permission when the person is saying that to me, that I don't have to come up with something deep to say and, have the quote ready. But I can just be like, I don't even know what to say. I'm so sad with you.
Right.
And that's okay, too, to just be sad together and not try to work to fixing, but just actually being, I think is important.
I 100% agree. And I think you're right. Like a lot of the time, we just want someone to bear witness to our pain and what we're navigating through and how we're trying to go through it, which is why I think sometimes like social media is good for that sometimes, and then sometimes it's not, unfortunately. But I think a lot of people who don't have maybe the space to be all layers of themselves in real life have been able to find community through there. And something that you mentioned too was the rage part. And that's something that I personally have been thinking a lot about over the past couple of weeks. Just studying how people exemplify rage and how they, if they allow it to come out or how it shows up for you. And as I'm thinking, I'm like, rage is a part of grief. It's a part of everything. How does rage show up for you? Where do you put it? How do you sit with it? Or do you not sit with it?
I think I put it first. I journal a lot, so I put it in my journal. I think I need to get some stuff out of me so that I can write and be an artist, right? I don't want to give my readers all my rage. I think, I don't want to give them the raw version of the diary entry.
Right.
That's not art. That's just me venting. And then, but then when I can get through some of that initial emotion, whatever it is, heavy grief, anger, frustration, worry, then I can craft something with that, what's left. And so I make a lot of art in response to what I'm upset about. And then I really do walk a lot. I live in New York City. It's a very walkable city. And I just sometimes need to just move and get from one place to another. And in that time, I'm thinking or listening to music or a podcast. I'm just trying to put something in because sometimes I'm giving so much of myself. So then when the well is empty, where do you go to refill? So I turn to music, I turn to scripture, and I turn to quiet too. I think sometimes it's just also okay to not have anything on and just, be in silence for a little bit. So
I mean, it sounds like in that way, this is a practical way of caring for yourself, regardless of how you're feeling, in many different ways of like being able to either write about it, move your body in a way, reflect through music, or just be still.
And take a nap. But listen now, I've become the queen of naps.
I'm really trying to get there.
And I always tell
naps.
people I don't get in bed and put the cup, because then you going to sleep.
You're going to
that's
sleep.
Not
right,
a nap.
right. Like,
so I really do have like a whole system of like, if I'm sitting up in a comfortable chair and I set my timer, I can get a good 30-minute, 45-minute nap in and be good when I wake up actually and ready to have the rest of the day. So I've also just learned, sometimes we talk about self-care in this way of like a retreat and a spa day or a trip and like,
or buy something.
Please do that.
Like, yes.
When you can. But every single day I am trying to take care of myself.
Yeah.
So that I don't get to a point where I'm burning out and need to go away. I want to be at a point where I want to go away and that can be rejuvenating. But you don't want to be so worn out that you can't even enjoy the trip you're taking because you have been so tired just to get on the trip, right? Or to the spa. And so I am trying to carve out in every day, even on book tour, even when life is so full and so busy, time for myself, whether that is writing for 10 minutes in the morning in my journal, going on a quick walk in a neighborhood, or calling a friend and just saying, hey, I only got 10 minutes. What's going on? Give it to me real quick, or taking photos. I walk and take a lot of photos too and then share that. So I think it's important to think about what are the everyday small things we can do to love on ourselves and check on our people.
Yeah. I think you mentioned something that is a constant conversation for me in regards to self-care. Sometimes it feels like it needs to be this very big thing in order for you to be doing it correctly, right? And then, with burnout too, a conversation I have often is like, you can't, vacation the burnout away. You can't, buy cute little trinkets all the time to get the burnout out, because what you are being burnt out from is still there, right? And what that requires is system changes. And it sounds like for you, you found ways of being able to take your routine and make it as big and as small, depending on how much capacity you have and where you are and what resource you have with you.
Yeah. And the older I get, I'm learning how to say no. Even to things I really want to do.
Really?
It's become easier to say no to things
That's
I
like
don't want to
boss
do.
level, like to things you want to do. No,
I'm not fully there where I can make it a quick decision. Sometimes I have to like struggle to make the decision. So I'll be like, let me think about it. And then I can get the courage to say no when I go think about it. Like, Renee, you can't. Like, I seriously have a color-coded calendar where work is one color and personal things are another color. So that when I look at it at a glance, if I have so much of the work color and not enough of the personal, I'm like, you're doing too much. You don't have anything on here that's just brunch with your friend or, downtime. And so I will maybe want to do something so bad and then be like, okay, I got to say no to this. I'm so sorry. Wow. Maybe next time, or, it's no for now, but maybe later. And that has helped me also take care of myself. So again, it's not always doing these big things. It's just these everyday practices of listening. I've become better at listening to what I want, what I need, and what I'm capable of handling in the moment. Yeah.
My thing is, does the guilt show up?
Oh, of course.
Okay.
Yeah, you just, tell yourself, the more you do it, the more you remember that you've done it before, so you can do it again, right? So yeah, the first time I say no, then I hope they're not mad at me. I hope they're, and you go through the whole thing, and then you realize, oh, they're okay. I'm okay. Okay. Then the next time I can say no, maybe a little quicker. And then, you build the muscle.
Yeah.
But yes, in the very beginning, there's just so much pressure we put on ourselves sometimes to show up for everybody else. And so I've been trying to show up for me.
Yeah. How has that been impacting you, being able to show up for yourself more now and more intentionally?
How has it impacted me? I'm not sure yet. I think I'm still learning how it's impacted me. Hopefully I'll see the fruit of it later. Right now I'm so in it. I'm not really sure what the fruit of it will be, but it has given me peace of mind and literally rest of just not being so tired all the time because I don't feel like I have to do everything. And I don't have to do it right now. There are some things that I'm like, I really want to do that. And hopefully that opportunity will come back to me. And if it doesn't, that is okay. Other opportunities will come too. I think maybe, hopefully, the longer we live, we just realize that lesson and it becomes easier to do over time, I think. I hope.
Yeah. I mean, to me, I know that you're saying that, like, you're putting in the work now to see the results later, but it sounds like you really trust yourself.
I do. Yeah. I don't know that I always did, or maybe I have trusted myself and been talked out of that trust. And now I'm better at trusting myself and really holding on to like, no, this is how I feel.
Like, I know what's good for me.
This is what I need. Yeah, I'm definitely better at that now.
Yeah, that's such a beautiful, I think, experience. And I'm calling it an experience because, like you said, there are some people that will try to talk you, or some experiences that will try to talk you out of that knowledge of being able to know and trust yourself in the ways that you do. And in trying to build that trust, or if anyone is listening that is trying to build that trust or struggling, what is something that you would say to them?
About trusting yourself? I think for me, speaking from how I've learned to trust myself is when I do the thing that I feel like I'm supposed to do, sometimes I don't realize it until a long time later. You don't always see the immediate result of that, but the more you see that you were right or that you didn't mess up your whole life, the easier it gets to continue to do it. So I think when I am feeling very anxious or nervous about something, I remind myself, Renee, you have done hard things before. So I have a track record with myself.
Right.
I have a track record with God. We have a history together. We've been through some things. So, I just have to remind myself and my worry and my fears and all the anxiety of like, you've gone through hard things before. You didn't know how it was going to work out. And sometimes it did not work out the way you wanted to, but look at you. You're okay.
Yeah.
You survived it.
Yeah.
And not just survived in this way of like, oh, I'm by and by, I made it. Thank you, Lord. Like, no, I made it.
Like, you're like, I'm
and
here.
I'm good.
Right.
You know what I mean? So I think you just do it. And then you see, I'm okay. And then you can do it again, and then you do it again. And so I don't trust that things will turn out how I want them to. I trust that I can handle whatever happens.
Wow.
I've been through some really hard things that I prayed would turn out another way. And that prayer didn't get answered. And I live with that hurt of like, man, I wanted that.
Yeah.
But I also can see that I'm okay even without the thing. So the trust is not like this kind of fairy tale. Just trust and believe and it'll be fine. Or dream big and your dreams will come true. Like, no. Dream big, yes. Dream boldly and bravely, and also understand you might not get that thing.
Yeah.
But you are proving to yourself that you're capable of persevering and handling hard things. And I think for me, that is more important sometimes than getting the actual thing that I thought I wanted.
Yeah.
That I've proven to myself that I am strong.
Yeah.
And that I'm capable
Yeah.
of surviving. And to me, that's the life skill that I want to have, not an accumulation of things.
Of things.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, again, I'm stunned. Mostly stunned because I think, everything that you're saying is right? But I think society teaches us the opposite of what you're saying. And then we get stuck in this kind of cycle of disappointment because we're not getting the things that we work towards or the thing that we really want, that we're like white knuckling it to get. And then instead of kind of seeing it as like, okay, maybe there's something that I'm not supposed to be doing or having right now. Maybe I wasn't prepared. It's just like it ends up kind of adding up and chipping away at our self-trust and our self-esteem.
Yeah, I was sharing earlier with a group of students and then later finishing the story with my sister about just how I got published and all these moving parts that were on the surface disappointing. Long story short, I had all these opportunities to be in New York and pursue writing and pursue my dream. And so many things would get in the way of me finishing it. And I'd have to kind of start all over again. Then finally I get a book contract. And then they held the book for like 3 years.
Oh my gosh.
I was like, now what is going on here? I signed the contract and then we're not going to publish it. It was so sad and frustrated and couldn't understand what was going on. And then this is the picture book, A Place Where Hurricanes Happen, my first book ever published. Well, I signed that contract in 2007. The book came out in 2010 on the 5th anniversary of Katrina, which made it be in the news more. And a lot of people were talking about it again. And I had met people by 2010 that were able to really help me with my publishing career and kind of set me on a track that I didn't even know them in 2007. So had that book come out without their support and their guidance and their help, it wouldn't have, It wasn't the 5th anniversary. There was all this media coverage. And so the book was featured on NBC Nightly News. And I got to go to New Orleans and give the book to the young people who inspired the stories and see them in a much better place than they were 5 years later.
Right.
And none of that would have happened in 2007. Yeah. But me and my small mind, and I couldn't see past what I wanted. I was sad and frustrated and, and it worked out. So sometimes I just, when things happen or don't happen, really, when things don't happen that I want, I constantly remind myself, you've been here before and it works out. And it might not work out in this, grand way, like, wow, then the book does really well and all the things. But I just feel like life has proven to me time and time again that I am going to be okay, and that there are other things at play that I do not know that are going on that are going to end up working for me if I just let it and get out of the way sometimes to try to make something happen and just let the thing happen. I've learned that. So I try to remind myself that with new things. It's hard, but
Of
the
course.
longer you do it, the more examples you have of it.
Yeah. And it then doesn't have to feel like such a conscious decision, right? You're just
Right.
kind of doing it.
Yes, I've become better, and it comes quicker of being like, oh, okay, that's not going. Okay,
that's fine.
Yeah, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah. Ooh.
Yeah.
I hope that for everyone listening and myself that I'll get to that point where I'm like, it's okay. It's all right.
Well, and I mean, let me be clear now. I will get frustrated still. I'm not saying like, oh, it's okay. I mean, being comfortable to sit in that disappointment and sadness and still say, I will be okay. And I can hold the sadness about whatever the thing is and I'm disappointed about. I do not believe in minimizing our emotions or pretending like I'm fine. I don't care anyway. Right. No, I care. And I want some things. And I want some things right now.
Okay.
I wanted some things yesterday.
Right.
And I don't even mean like opportunities of publishing world. It's like I want healing for some of my loved ones who are sick. I want this world to live up to this nation to live up to its promise, and to its values that we say we have. So there are some real things that I want and I'm disappointed about. But again, I can look back and say, okay, we as a people have gone through a lot. And we have a track record of faith and victory and seed time and harvest. And that's where I find my hope and my strength.
Yeah. And I think what you're describing is that many things will constantly be existing at once.
Yes.
Constantly. And there's space for all of them if we're open to it.
Yeah.
So to end today, even though I feel like I have so many things to personally journal about once I leave here, I always like to ask folks this particular question. And I think I'm really excited to see what you say. I mean, you write so many books for the young adults and the young children in the world. What would little Renee think of your life today?
I think little Renee would just be so tickled and so proud and surprised. I knew that I was a writer. I've always been a writer. I've always had journals. I've always been a storyteller. My playtime was making up stories on the porch and asking my mom, you're Jenny, you're this person, you're, and like, that was me my whole life. So it's not surprising that I am a storyteller. I did not know I could do it professionally. I didn't even know that was a thing. You could be a published author and make a living that way. So I think little Renee would be like, oh, the thing that you just love to do. And you're now doing that and traveling all over the world. I think she's just kind of like in awe that it happened, but not surprised that I'm doing what I'm doing.
Yeah. That's so beautiful. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I feel like you shared so many beautiful gems and so much encouragement, which I think is extremely needed right now. So thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.